What do you do when your name is suddenly at the center of a storm you never asked for? I remember walking into that game like it was any other night. Loud arena, Fever fans showing up early, kids in my jersey, people holding signs. For me, it was simple. Compete, win possessions, move the ball, play free. That's always been my mindset, but sometimes in this league, it feels like the game isn't just about basketball. It's about narratives, it's about emotions, about how people react when attention shifts. That night against Chicago, the energy felt different from warm-ups. You can sense tension before tip-off. Players talk, competitors test each other. That normal trash talk has always been part of basketball. I grew up in gyms where people said things just to see if you deflinch, and I never flinch. The game was physical. That's not new to me. We've been guarded full court since college. We've been bumped, grabbed, hit. That's the cost of having the ball in your hands. I don't complain about physicality. I embrace it, but there's a difference between competing hard and letting frustrations spill over. When the whistle blew and the play was technically dead, I wasn't expecting anything else. I turned to get the ball, and suddenly I was on the floor. It wasn't a basketball move. It wasn't a play on the ball. It was just impact. And for a split second, the arena went quiet. That silence is what I remember most. Not the hit, not the fall, the silence. When thousands of people stop reacting all at once, you know something crossed the line. Now here is the part that matters. In that moment, I had a choice. React emotionally or respond professionally. I chose to get up. I didn't yell. I didn't escalate. I didn't turn it into something bigger. I went to the line and shot my free throws. Because that asks what leaders do. They let their game answer. After the game, reporters asked me about it. That's their job. My job is to stay composed. I said what I truly believe. It's a physical game. Emotions run high. You respond with basketball. That wasn't not media training. That's how I operate. But what happened next wasn't about one play anymore. It became about culture, about accountability, about how this league wants to grow. I am not here to attack anyone. I am not here to drag another player. Basketball is competitive. We all want to win, but there's a difference between edge and chaos. There's a difference between intensity and instability. And here's something people don't always understand when you become one of the faces of a league. Whether you ask for that or not, everything gets amplified. Every foul, every comment, every reaction. I did not create that spotlight, but I do understand it. And when something controversial happens involving me, it doesn't stay between two players. It becomes a league conversation. Over the past couple years, we felt both incredible support and visible frustration from some corners. That be part of growth. When attention increases, emotions follow. But the league is bigger than individual feelings. The WNBA is trying to reach new audiences, new markets, new sponsorships. That requires professionalism from everyone involved. Talent alone is enough at this level. You need maturity, you need self-control, you need to understand that the league reputation affects every paycheck, every endorsement, every opportunity. When people talk about certain players struggling to find teams, I think it's deeper than one incident. Front offices evaluate everything, not just points per game. They evaluate culture fit, locker room presence, media handling, coachability. You can average 17 a night and still be viewed as a risk. And that is the uncomfortable truth about professional sports. Teams aren't just building rosters, rebuilding environments. Chemistry matters, stability matters, sponsors matter, league image matters. After that game, I didn't say much publicly because I didn't need to. People saw what happened. The footage spoke. The league reviewed it. The decision was made. I moved forward. That's how I've handled every situation since I entered this league. Play hard, stay steady. Don't let noise control your focus. But when I saw interviews later where the moment was minimized or reframed like it was just basketball, it reminded me of something important. Accountability is powerful, and avoiding it is revealing. We all make mistakes. V made mistakes on the court, turnovers, bad shots, defensive lapses, but you own them. That is growth. That is leadership. What separates players long-term isn't talent. It's adaptability. It's emotional control. Whether you can look at yourself honestly and say, I need to improve that. This league is evolving. The attention is different now. The standards are rising. More cameras, more viewers, more scrutiny. That means we all have to elevate. If you can adjust, the league moves on without you, and that as not personal, that as business. I don't celebrate anyone struggling to find opportunities. I don't root for exile. I root for growth. But professional sports are unforgiving when patterns repeat. When organizations repeatedly decide the headache outweighs the production, that tells a story. The WNBA is trying to build something sustainable. Bigger arenas, expansion teams, new media deals. That only works if the product on the floor matches the professionalism off it. I am not perfect. I am learning every season, the physicality, the media, the expectations. But I understand one thing clearly. If I want this league to grow, I have to represent it well. Even when I get hit, even when I get criticized, even when narratives swirl, because the spotlight doesn't shrink, it expands. And when it expands, everything gets exposed. That game in June wasn't just about a hip check. It was about direction, about where the league stands on discipline, about what behavior gets tolerated, about what standard gets enforced. And I think the message was clear. The WNBA is choosing stability over chaos. It's choosing professionalism over volatility. It's choosing long-term growth over short-term noise. Whether people agree with that or not is their opinion. But from where I stand, the league is maturing. And if you want to be part of that future, you have to mature with it. That's not about one player, that about all of us. What people don't know to always see is that moments like that don't exist in isolation. When something controversial happens on the court, it connects to everything that came before it. Every suspension, every locker room issue, every coaching conflict, front offices remember patterns. And in professional sports, patterns matter more than potential. They always believe that basketball is about trust. Coaches have to trust you, teammates have to trust you, the organization has to trust you. And once that trust cracks, it's hard to rebuild. When I came into this league, I understood I was stepping into a space built by veterans who worked for years without the spotlight that now surrounds us. I respect that. I genuinely do. Growth didn't start with me, but growth does evolve with whoever is carrying momentum at the moment. And here, where things get complicated, when attention shifts toward one player, especially a younger one, it can feel unfair to those who were grinding before the cameras arrived. I get that. I understand the human side of it. But competition is supposed to stay within the lines. When it crosses over into personal frustration, that's when careers start slipping. After that Chicago game, the league reviewed the play and upgraded the foul. That wasn't media pressure. That wasn't T-fan outrage. That was officials looking at the footage and deciding the contact was unnecessary. That matters because the WNBA is not trying to market chaos. It's trying to market skill, intensity, storylines, rivalries built on talent, not targeting, I move forward quickly. We had games to win, adjustments to make, but for other players, the fallout didn't disappear. Teams around the league talk, general managers communicate more than people realize. When one organization suspends you for conduct, when another benches you for attitude, when a third lets your contract expire without even a qualifying offer, that has not coincidence. That consensus, talent buys you chances, character keeps you employed. I've seen incredibly gifted players come into the league and struggle because the mental side didn't match the physical ability. And at this level, every roster spot is valuable. Coaches don't want distractions. They want cohesion. You can be a walking bucket and still not fit. That's a hard truth for some people to accept. When I heard about the move to play overseas during the WNBA season, it confirmed something that had already become obvious. No team was willing to take the risk. Not because of one foul, but because of the accumulation of moments. Professional sports are ruthless about accumulation. One outburst can be forgiven. A pattern becomes reputation, and reputation becomes decision. I don't celebrate that. I don't enjoy seeing anyone pushed out, but the league is growing into something more structured, more corporate, more brand-driven. That means standards tighten. We talk a lot about expansion, about new teams, about rising salaries, about new media deals, but growth also demands discipline. If sponsors are investing more money, they want predictability. If networks are putting games in prime slots, they want professionalism. If arenas are selling out, they want a product families can trust. That doesn't mean the game should be soft. It means it should be controlled. Intensity without control becomes volatility, and volatility scares organizations. I've always tried to handle adversity the same way. Stay calm, let the game respond. Even when I feel frustration, I don't give it the microphone. Because once something is said publicly, you can take it back. After the incident, when reporters asked me about it, I kept it simple. Physical game. Move on. That wasn't weakness, that was awareness. Because I understand something bigger than that moment. Everything I say carries weight, not because I demand it, but because the spotlight exists. And when you in that spotlight, your composure becomes part of your value. Teams evaluate that. When front offices decide whether to sign someone, they don't just look at the stat sheet. They ask, will this player elevate our culture or destabilize it? Culture wins championships. Culture builds dynasties. Look at successful franchises in any sport. They protect culture fiercely. I think the WNBA is at a crossroads where culture matters more than ever. We re-adding teams. We renegotiating major CBA changes. We redrawing new audiences who didn't grow up watching this league. That means every incident is magnified. When I see interviews where the play is minimized, where accountability is sidestepped, it reinforces why teams hesitate. Because growth isn't about defending yourself. It's instead about reflecting. You don't get better by pretending nothing happened. You get better by adjusting. Something I am constantly working on. Every season I review my own film, not just for missed shots, for body language, for reactions, for leadership moments. Because leadership isn't about perfection, it's about correction. And when correction doesn't happen, organizations notice. I think a lot of fans focus on the highlight moment, the hip check, the clip, the viral angle. But executives look at the bigger picture. Multiple teams, similar issues, public attitude, media friction. That is not one bad night. That is trajectory. And in a league that is trying to move upward, trajectory matters. The WNBA doesn't have the luxury of absorbing chaos the way bigger leagues sometimes can. We rebuilding momentum. We reproving viability. We refighting outdated narratives. So when someone repeatedly introduces instability, the calculation becomes simple. Is the talent worth the turbulence? If the answer becomes no across the board, the door closes. And once it closes league-wide, it's hard to reopen. That ES, not personal vendetta, that ES, professional evaluation. I've had moments where people wanted to test me, push me, rattle me, but I always come back to one question. Does this help my team win? If the answer is no, I let it go. Because winning is bigger than ego, and longevity is bigger than one emotional reaction. The league isn't blacklisting emotion. It's blacklisting unpredictability. There, a difference. Basketball is emotional, passionate, physical, but within structure. When structure collapses, organizations react, and that what we it's not about punishing one play. It's about protecting direction. The WNBA is choosing stability. And whether people like that or not, stability builds empires. They're something else. People don't always talk about pressure changes everything. When I came into this league, I knew there would be physical adjustments, faster defenders, stronger guards, smarter schemes. But what I didn't fully anticipate was how much emotional pressure shifts the temperature of games when arenas are suddenly sold out, when national broadcasts increase, when social media clips circulate instantly. It raises intensity for everyone. Some players rise with that spotlight. Some players resist it. And that tension doesn't always show up in interviews. It shows up in small moments, in body language, in reactions after whistles, in how you carry yourself when things don't go your way. I felt that spotlight since college. Full arenas, defensive schemes built around stopping me, commentators analyzing every possession. But what I learned early is that you can common tool attention. You can only control response. That L's a difference. When something controversial happens involving me, it doesn't just affect two players, it becomes a conversation about the league itself. And that is the weight of visibility. The hip check wasn't T just replayed because of contact. It was replayed because of context. If it had happened between two bench players in a midweek game, it likely wouldn't have gone viral. But when you re in the spotlight, every action carries amplification. That amplification isn't something I asked for, but I understand it. And I think that where maturity shows up most clearly, because when attention increases, ego gets tested. If someone feels overshadowed, if someone feels overlooked, the temptation is to react emotionally, to reclaim control through confrontation. But confrontation without calculation usually backfires. The WNBA is not the same league it was 5 years ago. It's more visible, more commercial, more scrutinized. With that comes accountability. I've heard arguments that basketball is supposed to be gritty, that rivalries fuel ratings, that physical play builds intensity. I agree, but controlled intensity is different from reckless frustration. Rivalries are powerful when they rebuild on skill versus skill. They become damaging when they shift into targeting. When fans saw that clip, they didn't see competition. They saw loss of composure. And in modern sports culture, perception becomes reality fast. I don't think most players wake up intending to damage their own careers. I think sometimes frustration accumulates quietly. Maybe someone feels underappreciated. Maybe they feel the narrative favors someone else. Maybe they feel invisible in a moment that should spotlight them. But here's the truth about professional leagues. Narratives are temporary, reputation is permanent. You can fight narrative with aggression. You fight it with performance. That's something I learned the hard way at times, when critics questioned whether I could translate my game, when analysts said I wouldn't not adjust to WNBA physicality, when people waited for me to stumble. You do not answer that with confrontation. You answer it with improvement. After that game in June, I didn't change my approach. I didn't start playing softer. I didn't seek retaliation. I focus on basketball because long-term growth beats short-term reaction. What happened after that season confirms something important. Teams across the league chose consistency over volatility. They chose stability over unpredictability. And that choice reflects the league future. As salaries increase and media rights grow, front offices become more strategic. They analyze locker room impact. They analyze leadership traits. They analyze emotional regulation. Professional sports are no longer just about production. They're about brand alignment. If a player consistently creates headlines that distract from performance, executives weigh that heavily. The WNBA is fighting for every inch of mainstream credibility. That means minimizing chaos. Some people interpret that as being too corporate. I see it as being intentional. If we want expansion, if we want sustainable revenue, if we want generational growth, structure matters. I've been on teams where chemistry clicked instantly, and I've seen teams where tension drained energy from practices. You can feel it. Winning teams protect culture like as a championship ring. They don't let one personality destabilize momentum. And when I look at how this situation unfolded, I don't see punishment. I see recalibration. The league is recalibrating standards. And honestly, that's healthy. I am not naive. I know people think they're bias. I know some fans believe certain players get protected more than others. But the reality is simpler. When you repeatedly cross lines with multiple organizations, decision makers adjust. That not about favoritism, that about pattern recognition. And once a pattern becomes clear, the options narrow. I don't take satisfaction in someone struggling to find a roster spot, but I do believe in consequences. Consequences aren't cruelty, they recorrection. When you young, especially talented, it's easy to believe talent will always rescue you, but in professional sports, talent opens doors. Character keeps them open. If this league wants to thrive, it needs players who can handle visibility, pressure, and criticism without unraveling. I am still learning that every day. Every game, every interview, every reaction. Growth doesn't not stop because you re in the spotlight. It intensifies. And the difference between longevity and short-lived impact often comes down to one thing. Can you evolve, or do you defend every mistake? That where careers diverge, the WNBA is evolving, and players have to evolve with it. There's something deeper underneath all of this that people don't always want to admit. The league is changing faster than some players are comfortable with. When I entered the WNBA, it wasn't just about basketball skill. It was about momentum. College ratings were exploding. New fans were tuning in who had never watched a professional women AS game before. Arenas that weren't always full were suddenly packed. That kind of shift doesn't just impact ticket sales, it impacts identity. When a league transitions from steady growth to rapid spotlight, it creates friction. Veterans who carry the league through quieter years might feel displaced. Younger players stepping into national headlines might feel scrutinized. Executives feel pressure to capitalize on momentum. And in the middle of all that, emotions intensify. What happened that night wasn't just about contact on a dead ball. It symbolized something bigger. How players respond when dynamics shift. Professional leagues survive on adaptability. The NBA has seen it. NFL teams see it. When a generational shift happens, the veterans who thrive are the ones who adjust their mindset, not resist it. I came into this league understanding one thing clearly. Nothing is guaranteed. Not attention, not endorsement deals, not roster spots, not public support. Everything is performance-based. And when something controversial happens involving me, I don't assume I'm immune from criticism. I look at what I could be handled differently. I analyze my reactions. I asked teammates how they felt about the moment, because perception shapes direction. The WNBA is negotiating new media deals. It's discussing CBA structures. It's adding franchises. That kind of growth demands professionalism at every level. If you a general manager and you reinvesting millions into expanding your brand, you want players who elevate stability. You don't want players who make headlines for the wrong reasons. That not a personal attack, that strategic business thinking. When I saw how the situation spiraled after that game, I didn't focus on social media outrage. I focused on how I could continue leading my team forward. We had young players trying to build chemistry. We had veterans adjusting to new systems. The last thing we needed was distraction. Leadership in moments like that isn't sowed. It's steady. It choosing not to escalate. It choosing not to respond emotionally in interviews. It understanding that one viral clip shouldn't define your trajectory. But here, something important. If you repeatedly give the league reasons to question your reliability, eventually those questions become decisions. 3 teams, similar issues. That's not coincidence. The S pattern. Professional sports are unforgiving when it comes to patterns. You can argue one incident, you can debate context, but when organizations independently arrive at the same conclusion, it speaks loudly. The WNBA isn't trying to exile talent. It trying to protect trajectory, and trajectory right now points toward expansion, sponsorship, growth, and national visibility. That growth can afford instability. I've had moments where I felt pressure boil over. I've felt frustration during games when defenses trap me or physicality ramps up, but I learned quickly that frustration has to stay internal. Because once it leaks outward recklessly, it reshapes how you reviewed. And once executives question how you that S the reality of this stage, fans often debate whether certain players get treated differently. I think what they really seen is the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is immediate, emotional, impulsive. Response is controlled, strategic, long-term focused. The league rewards response. When I see interviews attempting to reframe what happened, I don't feel anger. I feel clarity that maturity matters more than spin. If you want longevity in this league, you don't rewrite moments. You grow from them. And growth isn't something you announce in interviews. It's something others observe over time. The WNBA is no longer just a niche professional league. It's a growing brand. and brands protect consistency. That why front offices make hard decisions, not because they dislike a player, not because of one viral clip, but because unpredictability introduces risk. Risk impacts investment. Investment impacts growth. Growth impacts everyone. Every player benefits from a stable, expanding league, which means every player carries responsibility to protect that stability. That the shift we reliving through right now, this isn't about rivalry, it about direction, and direction requires discipline. When the league decided to move forward without certain players, it wasn't about revenge. It was about recalibration, and recalibration is part of evolution. I don't know what the future holds for anyone individually, but I do know this. The WNBA is building something bigger than any single personality. And the players who thrive in that environment will be the ones who adapt, mature, and lead under pressure. Because the spotlight isn't at shrinking, it's expanding, and expansion demands composure. At the end of the day, this is really about one player. It's about when a league grows, the margin for error shrinks, the cameras are sharper, the narratives travel faster, sponsors pay more attention, every action becomes part of the brand. And I've had to learn that quickly. When I entered this league, I wasn't just adjusting to defensive schemes. I was adjusting to visibility. Every game nationally discussed, every foul replayed, every reaction analyzed frame by frame. You either let that overwhelm you or you mature through it. That night in June could V gone differently. I could V reacted emotionally. I could V escalated. I could V fed into it. But that doesn't build anything long term. Long-term growth requires restraint. It requires understanding that sometimes the best response is composure. And here, something important. The league didn't blacklist anyone overnight. Decisions like that build over time. Front offices don't sit in rooms making emotional calls. They evaluate risk. They assess locker room fit. They look at history. They consider trajectory. If multiple teams independently conclude the same thing, that tells you something. And when a player signs overseas during the WNBA season because no team is offering a contract, that tells you even more. It's not about talent deficiency. It's about trust deficiency. Professional sports operate on trust. Coaches trust you to execute systems. Teammates trust you to stay composed. Executives trust you not to damage the brand. When that trust erodes repeatedly, the opportunities shrink. It's not harsh. That structural, we had to earn trust too. People questioned whether my college name would translate. People questioned whether I could handle physicality. People questioned whether I'd handle media pressure. The only way to answer that was consistency. Not interviews, not tweets, not explanations. Consistency. Game after game. Interview after interview. Response after response. And I am still learning. I am not presenting myself as flawless. I'm evolving just like the league is evolving. But I understand this clearly now. The WNBA is no longer in survival mode. It's in growth mode. And growth mode demands discipline. The league is negotiating new deals, expanding to new cities, drawing in fans who never watched women basketball before. That means every player becomes an ambassador, whether they want to or not. If you carry volatility into that environment, it doesn't just affect you. It affects perception, and perception affects business. Some fans want chaos. They want drama. They want heated rivalries spilling into headlines. But executives want sustainability. You can have intensity without instability. You can have rivalry without recklessness. You can have edge without ego overriding structure. That where the league is heading, and players who align with that direction will thrive. Players who resist it will struggle. I don't say that with judgment. I say it with clarity, because I've felt the weight of the spotlight. I've felt the tension when games get chippy. I felt frustration when narratives swirl, but I've also seen what composure does. It builds trust, and trust builds longevity. When fans compare reactions, how one player responded after getting hit versus how another responded in interviews, they not just comparing personalities. They re-evaluating professionalism. And professionalism is currency. It keeps doors open. It creates endorsement, stability. It earns executive confidence that why standards matter. Not because the league wants to be rigid, but because growth demands reliability. If the WNBA wants to become a long-term powerhouse, it can afford unpredictability overshadowing performance. The message being sent right now isn't about punishment. It's about direction. The league is choosing forward momentum, choosing culture, choosing accountability. And whether people agree with every decision or not, the pattern is clear. Adaptation wins. If you can adjust, evolve, and accept responsibility, you'll find opportunity. If you repeat cycles without reflection, opportunity narrows. The reality of professional sports, for me, the focus stays the same. Improve, lead, stay steady under pressure, because I don't want to just be part of a viral moment. I want to be part of a sustainable era, and sustainable eras are built on composure, accountability, and growth. The league is evolving. The standards are rising, and the players who rise with it will define the future. That's where my attention is, not on past collisions, but on forward momentum. Now tell me what you think. Is the league protecting its future? Or is it overcorrecting? Drop your thoughts below.